I know a lot of you aren't musicians, but this guitar has played a huge role in my life. It is somehow part of who I am, so I just wanted to share it with you. This is my Stratocaster that I've had since I was a kid. I still have most of the original parts, but some of them have been lost over time. But the ones I do have are in this guitar right here. This is an early vintage reissue Stratocaster, like in 1984. And these are the original pickups from it, so I'm gonna put them back in it. We're gonna get this thing back to pretty much its original setup. The first thing is to get the strings loosened on this. So this whole thing is now repaired and disconnected from the guitar it's coming from. I replaced this tone pot. As you can see, the old one has a broken shaft. So I'm just gonna save this in case I ever give the guitar to someone to sell it so that I have the piece that goes with it. I went ahead and took the strings off of this one. Now I'm gonna remove the pickguard with the whole assembly. I've had this guitar since I was a kid. Since I was, I don't know, about 11. Somebody owned it for a good 9 years before me, and it was pretty mistreated. Not in a way that actually like hurt the awesomeness of it, but it's pretty beat up. Even when I got it when I was a kid, it was pretty beat up. It is a 1984 57 reissue, made in the Fullerton, California factory. It is the real deal. It's an extra rare color. They sprayed black over Lake Placid blue, so it's not something that's real common to see. The assembly I'm about to put back into it is some of the original electronics, and some parts have been replaced over time when things went bad or broke. When you have one of these guitars and it's not old yet, you don't think much about someday this is going to be my vintage instrument. So there are bits and pieces of it that I didn't take care of or that I didn't think to keep. The original three-way switch I still have. The original pots I still have. They all went bad over time. The original pickups is what's going back in it now. I scratched my initials in it when I was a teenager right there. I did shield it at one point. First things first, we're gonna unsolder. I'm excited just to put it back to stock, just like it would have been when I was a kid. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm looking for a good spot to solder the ground wire from the guitar's body. I'm actually gonna tap onto where there's another wire and solder it to the wire, so that I'm not soldering directly to any of the original pots. So now before I solder any more, I'm just putting it all in here and making sure that it fits. And now that I know it fits, I'll go ahead and solder the final connection. And that's beautiful. Now before I screw all these screws back in, I need to plug this into an amp and tap the pickups with something metal to make sure everything's good. Every one of these troubleshooting steps can save me from having to take the pickguard back off once I've got it screwed on. So everything checked out good, and I'm going to go ahead and put the screws back in. I'm going to use the screws that were already in this body. I know that they'll line up. Some of them have to go in an angle, and it's an old guitar. That's all I can say. 33-year-old guitar, so yeah. I know that this part right here has to go in at a crazy angle. This one barely holds a screw. Crazy angle again. When I was a kid, this was my first real guitar. I had a red guitar called a Memphis. It was an electric guitar. And I had like a toy classical guitar. I had a few different guitars to practice on, but when I was 10 or 11, I asked my parents if I could start taking guitar lessons, and they were like, yeah, awesome, but you're gonna need a real guitar. So we looked in the newspaper, black Stratocaster. It was like $250. This was 1992. Black Stratocaster, kind of beat up, $250. Went and looked at it. I think my dad knew that it was a vintage reissue, or that it was a nice one. I don't know. But to me, I was just like, that thing looks cool, because some of this wear that's on here now, like this chip and this spot, that stuff was already on there when I got it. All this up here happened later. When I was in high school, our punk rock band, I would like crash this into the cymbals. And then I would pick at it some, and yeah, it ended up looking like that. Pretty crazy. We used to wear like spiked bondage belts. It's been through some shit. This spot was already there when I got the guitar. I think the guy's name was Eric, I vaguely remember, that owned it before me. And I think it was supposed to be an E. I've always wanted to turn that into a B, but I've never like really felt cool about just taking a screwdriver to the guitar. The neck is worn down very much. About 3 or 4 years ago, I had to get the neck planed. It had a twist to it. My luthier was like, man, I know the guitar looks awesome and it's just how you like it, but we're gonna have to plan that neck. Because I kept just getting him to flatten the frets over and over. So I was able to keep a little bit of my original wear, but it looked cool. It looked cooler before, honestly, but it plays better now. So that's what really counts. The original guitar had a 1-ply pickguard, which I never owned. I received it with a pickguard just like this one. So this isn't the pickguard that came with it when I bought it, but this is exactly like the pickguard that was on it when I got it. The pickguard that came on it when I bought it, we drew all over it with markers and like peace signs and weed leaves and stuff, or whatever. I think it was actually more like anarchy signs and weed leaves. I'm gonna go ahead and string it up while we're here. When I was a kid, I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan do this thing where he'd hold the guitar by the neck and then stand on this part. And I've done that to this guitar many times. When we were punk rock, I was like, check this out, dudes, I'm gonna skateboard on my guitar. Yeah. We also used to ollie over this guitar. It's ridiculous. It sounds horrible to me now. It sounds so stupid to me now. But yeah, we used to ollie over this guitar. I also went through a phase when I was in 8th or 9th grade and I was really becoming punk rock. I had covered this thing with stickers and like, it was pretty abused. My dad was like, hey, I'll buy you this Epiphone like the one the guy in Rancid has if you let me take that black Strat to work and teach with it. So I was like, cool man, perfect, Rancid's awesome. Something like that. That's not the exact way this went down, but something like that. So my dad took this guitar, taught guitar lessons with it for, I'd say 3 or 4 years. In the meantime, I had a lot of cool guitars. I had a lot of cool cheap guitars, like a sparkly Epiphone Les Paul. Loved that. An Epiphone Sheraton, which was awesome. But eventually I got a little older and I started really getting into music theory and learning again. He was like, hey, you want that black Strat back? And I was like, yeah, I'm ready for it. As I got a little older, like into my young 20s and really became a professional musician, this was my main guitar, my only great guitar for a while. Eventually I traded a buddy of mine, a cheap Les Paul. It was a Gibson, but it was like a flat top. It was not a good one. For a beat up Ibanez semi-hollow body. Really, that became my main guitar. The red guitar, the Ibanez, that became my main guitar. Sometime within the same few years there, I was studying with Clint Strong and he played a Parker Fly and my mom had a Parker Fly and I was like, hey mom, can I borrow that Parker Fly? Basically, I borrowed her Parker Fly and never gave it back, and the Parker Fly became my main guitar. I went through phases where I'd play the Stratocaster, or I'd play the Parker, or I'd take both to gigs. For a good 5 years, I played 5 nights a week, and so I just rotated my guitars, you know, whatever sounded fun to play that night. No matter what guitar I've owned, this has always been one of my favorites, just because I have that connection to it that I've had it my whole life. I'm gonna play this guitar until I die, probably. I gotta go find an E string somewhere. So over the years, the neck on this guitar has actually become thinner. Bridge spacing is metal, it doesn't change. So actually the strings are closer together than they used to be, and it makes the strings sit further into the pickup, and they make a replacement bridge where everything's a little bit closer together for this exact purpose, to go on vintage instruments where the neck is thinned out over time. You wouldn't think it, but the wood actually comes off over time. So I've thought about getting one of those bridges to replace this one, but I just haven't done it yet. The saddles, I actually have the original saddles in a box. The guy that works on my guitar, his name's Kerry Cash. He's like a world-class luthier. These are just some random saddles he had on his bench in 1993 or whatever. A few years back, I met this guitar pickup maker named Jerry Amalfitano. So he made me some sets of pickups, basically because we played so much and we talked to musicians all the time. So that's kind of sponsored, I guess. And until now, all of my guitars have had Amalfitano pickups in them. Just in the last month or so, I thought, why don't I put the original stuff back in these guitars and, play with that. I'm not saying I won't go back to the Amalfitanos. I love them. They're fantastic pickups. If you dig back through my channel to before I was a vlogger, I did reviews of those pickups. These pickups, these originals, are really one of the best sounding sets of pickups I own. So I'm really excited to have them back in the guitar they belong in. I feel like I should clickbait title this, Doing Surgery on My Best Friend. Amanda's my best friend, really. As much as I love my guitar, it's a guitar. I'm not that blues, dudes, not that blues. A lot of my younger years as a guitar player, my biggest influence was Jimi Hendrix. When I wasn't just straight up studying jazz, I was really into Hendrix. So having a good old black Stratocaster, man, that's made me feel like I had the right stuff, you know, something like that. The classic thought question, what's the first thing you'd grab if your house was on fire? This guitar is it for me, and that's always been my answer. For as long as I can remember, this has been the thing I knew I would say first. So now I'm gonna plug this thing in and just make sure everything's working before I put the other guitar back together. Well, my camera battery died while I was testing out the guitar, but it all went great. And I really enjoyed telling all of you about something that's so important to me. I know it's weird to say that a guitar played an important role in who I am, but that guitar has been my guitar, and I've been a guitar player for a very long time. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me while I fix my guitar. Leave me some comments down there, and subscribe if you don't already subscribe, and hit the bell. Leave me a thumbs up. I'm Bird Snake. Thanks for watching. I might even go after this guitar before I would save one of my dogs. Probably not. Probably not. I have some pretty cool dogs. I love my dogs. Scratch that.